Welcome everybody, Steve here. Today we're going to build this cart. Now I got quite a few of these carts to build, and not quite a few, I've only got 4 to build, but they're for stacking some chairs. Now I know you're thinking to yourself, why do I need a cart like that? Well, this is pretty well basic for anything that you're going to be building, and I never thought I was going to build a cart for a bunch of chairs, but I am. So anyway, I'm going to keep it as simple as we can. We're 6 feet by 23, and then I'm going to put a handle on either side. We've got plywood down here, and we're going to put 6 casters on here. And the reason that 6 casters, 2 casters is more than enough. But when you build something long and narrow, it becomes a skateboard. So if you put 2 casters in the middle, then you don't have to worry about, somebody riding it and kind of putting a bit of a bend in it. But anyway, this is the prototype. Gonna make some changes, of course, because when you first slam something together, there's always something that pops up. And one of the things is, I mentioned, we're gonna put a handle on both sides. That way you can stack from both sides, and if you do stack from one side and all the chairs fall, then they got somewhere to stop, right? So that's the whole thinking there. But anyway, we're going to show you what I do to keep it as simple as we can. We got to build a bit of a jig here to build the handle because it's a little complicated. And well, it's not complicated. It's complicated in the sense that when you build something like that, it's really hard to keep it straight. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is cut up all the material that we're going to need, and then basically we're going to start on the handles first, and I'll tell you why in a bit, and then from there just a matter of putting it together. Simple, just time consuming. Now I'm just setting up my saw here so that I can cut a 45, because on our angle iron we want to cut a 45, or if you don't have a chop saw, you could always just use a zip cut, notch it so that it fits like that, right? But I have a chop saw, so I'm going to cut everything on a 45. It's a little bit easier to do. Now to get the 45, I use a little cheater block that I built. Now this is just a piece of wood that I use my chop saw on, and I've got a 45 on here, and I got a 22.5 over here. So just put that up against my fence, bring it over. When the blade is nice and true, now I can tighten it up. It's really hard to see where the notch lines up on these and whether or not it's true or not. I just hit it here, just hold on. Perfect. I'll bring the wrench on this side. Just makes it a little easier to set your saw up. I'm cutting all the angle iron up right now, and so our dimensions are 6 feet by 23 inches. So the first thing you want to do is just cut an angle on your angle, and then we're going to have to flip it to cut the other angle. Now it's really hard just to bring your saw up to a mark, so I like to just give it a little shot with the Sharpie. And then You want to really clamp this stuff in hard because it's on an angle for some reason. Well, it's pulling. So if it's loose, it'll just keep pulling it and you'll end up with a crooked cut. So make sure she's clamped in good. Now if I can give you another tip, I always cut my pieces about, oh, I don't know, 32nds, sometimes a 1/16 of an inch shorter than what they have to be. Because that little gap, you're going to weld that up anyway. But it sure makes it a lot nicer if you're trying to make a piece that's, you know, perfect, and it also helps you square it up. So if you're a little longer, that means you're going to have to grind that off. A lot easier cutting shorter here than it is to grind it off. Time to work on the handle. Now you can see this one here, I just cut a V out. If I can just get that a little bit better, there we go. And just did a bend, did a bend. But what we've done is we've kind of redesigned this cart. We're gonna put a handle on both sides. So I've got a few of them to build. I'm just gonna cut them at 45, and then that one there is gonna be at a 22.5. And then I'll just put them together instead of bending them. So let's go cut those. So the small pieces, okay, we got a 45 here, the handle's going that way, and then this goes down. Now, to make a quick easy measurement from here to here, my saw doesn't cut that way. So then you'd have to transfer your mark from this to here, and then bring your mark or your line this way. So what I did was I did one like that, and then you only have to do this to the one side. Now what I've done is I've just taken a measurement from the inside here to there, which is in my case about, I want total 8 here, and it's about 6 15/16. Might make it a little bit smaller because then I've got a little gap to weld up. So by measuring from here to this point saves you some time, but you have to make one first. So in the prototype here, I've welded these on. I just tacked them on. But I don't want to weld them because when it comes to transportation, it just gets really, really bulky. So what I'm going to do is I got a piece of 1.5 by 1/4. I'm going to put that in between here, and I'm going to bolt it on to this piece of angle. Now I've got plywood here, so I got to make sure my bolt comes above the plywood. So I've drilled a couple of holes here, and I'm going to pre-drill the angle because it's a lot easier doing that when the angle iron's way up than it is when it's already welded onto your cart. So let's do that. Basically just going to center this just by eye this way, and then we'll center it this way. And just have to make sure that you got everything set so that the holes are going to be in the right spot. And it's just a matter of, let's see what we got. 1 3/4 there. Put it over about right there. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect by any means. It's just a handle. And we'll clamp it down. when you clamp something, you want to keep it as close to the hole as you can, so that this doesn't move too much with the drill bit. All right, I had another vice grip around here somewhere, but I'll find the vice grip. There it is. And then we'll just drill these holes. Now, I have 5/16 bolts, and these holes here, I'm going to eventually drill them out one size bigger than 5/16. That makes it a lot easier to put the bolt in. Lots more to go. We'll just keep on drilling. Time to start assembling the handles here. Now, this is the importance of a jig. This is as simple as it gets. Basically, I have one piece here just to hold this, and then this one here is on my 45-degree angle. And I have it at the end here, ending right where it needs to be, at 8 inches. So I know that's flush there. And when I get this here, I'm good. If I'm just doing this blind, I may have some pieces. And even if this was cut a little short and there's a bit of a gap there, that doesn't really matter. You just weld up the gap. So just as simple as that, and it's going to save you a bunch of time, and your project's just going to turn out better. So now we can tack all this stuff up. And then we got to figure out how to put it together. I'm not there yet. Last one. All right, I'm building a bit of a jig here so that I can finish these handles. And I don't know if you can see how much you can see here. Let's get a better view here. So I've got pieces on either side, and I'm using the straight edge on my workbench for these. And then all we have to do is just put a little chunk on the top, just a flat piece over here. And then we can put our handle on. So I think we can weld the whole thing up, tack it all up while it's in the jig. pretty happy with that. Half a dozen more to go. And then we can, I'll weld them all up after we're all said and done, get them all tacked up, and then we'll weld them up. Alright, we're open. Well, that's the last handle. I'll tell you what, using a jig is the only way to go. And if I had to fight with each one of these individually, I'd probably spend another couple of hours, and it wouldn't be perfect. So now we can take them and weld them up. Now you can see here I've added a little shim. Wasn't quite square. Yeah, those are the things you just gotta do. Not only does it save you time, it makes the job a lot more fun. Got the handles just about done. I got 2 more to weld up, but I need a break from welding and grinding. So we're going to start working on our base. Now this is the prototype base that I've used, or that I built, sorry. Now, we are going to use this as the jig for the rest of them. Now, you could just build each one. Basically all I did was just have clamp on a piece of metal, put the next one on, and then you're squaring everything up, and that takes a lot of time. So, what I'm doing now is, because I'm really happy about how square and the dimensions of this one, all I have to do is basically put all these together, clamp them, tack them, and weld them together. Makes it way easier. I know that this isn't a special jig or anything like that, but when you're building something big, it's really hard to, unless you got a very big huge table. We could easily build a jig and just put everything in, but we're going to use this as the jig. And it works just fine. So, I've got all the pieces cut. All I have to do now, clamp everything in, tack it together. This is where it really helps to have a lot of clamps. Now, because we're using our prototype as a jig, it's steel. So if you got a pretty good gap, make sure that your tacks are a little lighter so you don't burn through and weld it to your original one. Because then you got to deal with that, and it's like, forget it. All right, time to tack her up. Our next move is to put this cross piece in here. Now, it's really quite amazing how angle iron is never perfectly straight. Don't ever use it as a straight edge because it's usually got a pretty good one of these to it. So I took a chunk of scrap, just wedged it in between to make sure that I'm at the right dimension, and then I'm going to weld this support in the middle. Now I got this ugly piece of scrap here. Now, it's square, so what I'm going to do is drill 4 holes where the caster goes, and then all I have to do is clamp this down on my frame and drill the holes. So you're not marking every one of them. And you know, if you watch me, you know I hate drilling holes because you got nothing when you're done. And I just drives me. So anytime I can make it easier, I will. Now putting these casters on, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I want to put a piece of plywood on this side, so I want to put the bolt in this way, and what will happen is the bolt will be too high and it'll hit on the caster, so we'll have to zip cut those off. I'm using a lock washer. I don't want it to loosen off. I want it to be one and done. Now, if these cheap bolts, I'm not too sure how tight you can get them before they're going to break, but just be careful. Now I'm just putting a piece of metal in behind here just to protect it from shrapnel getting into that bearing. Now all we have left to do is to mount the handles. It's going to be a bit of a pain, eh? You can see that right now. Put that bolt in over here. There you have it. We got one done cart. Tomorrow we're going to put on the plywood, and then you can see when it's all said and done. I like it. So I kind of jumped the gun on my first cart here. I didn't mark where the bolts are going to go. So we got the bolt head, we have to drill, you know, a spot so that the bolt head can get recessed into our plywood. Now I thought, well, I can put a little dab of paint on top of the heads of the bolts, but because I used a jig, I'm pretty confident that the holes are going to be in the same spot for all of them. So we can just take our plywood, jack it out of there, and just go underneath there and mark the holes. So now I'm using is just a, this is a 7/8 Forstner bit, and I'm going down just about to the bottom here. I got 3/4 inch plywood. You don't want to go any less than that because people are going to be standing on it, you know that. So 7/8, you know, you can get a little tighter if you want, but wiggle room is a good thing. Okay, we got the casters on here. That'll work right there. Now, let's see if the wood fits. Now the wood's going to have to go on before the handles, so I'll have to take those ones off. Well, that looks really good. The wood's a little bent, but that's alright. Perfect. I'll put these handles on and then we'll take a look at it when it's all done. That's a nice looking cart. Really happy the way it turned out. Now, if you're just building one, just go ahead and build it, but if you're building more than one, the importance of that jig is just a major time saver, and everything's going to bolt up. This handle is going to bolt up to that one, and you won't have to worry about, you know, got to put a 1 here and a 1 here. Everything's going to fit, and this cart's going to be sturdy, and it's going to last forever. Anyway, till the next project, thanks for watching. Stay tuned.